Hello and good evening. Welcome to this chat. We called it a chat for some reason because we couldn't even come up with whether it's a conference workshop, but we just wanted to have a chat. So I want to say good evening to all of you and welcome. My name is Dr. STEM and I am the founder of the Empowerment Academy, which is bringing you this event this evening. I'll talk a little bit more about me, but what I wanted to do was to go ahead and explain the reason why we have this evening today, which we are titling Reclaiming a Sense of Peace. And today's date is May 12th, 2021. I want to promise you three things that you will get from the panelists that we have today. You will feel educated because there's going to be some information that you've never heard before or didn't think about it in that way that you'll be hearing from our panelists and speakers today. You will be entertained because some of them are really comedians. I don't even know why they became mental health professionals, because they are comedians. So you'll find some things in there to just laugh about. Hopefully you'll have that openness to laugh about certain things that we talk about, because sometimes that alone is therapy of laughing and just being inspired. You also will be empowered by what we're talking about today, because our goal is to make sure that you do indeed find ways to reclaim a sense of peace, especially during this time of COVID-19, which is the pandemic. So why are we talking about, reclaiming a sense of peace? I'll tell you, I want to say thank you to Reverend Larry Jones, who's with us today. He's one of the panelists. He from nowhere text messaged and, one morning and said, Doc, it's Mental Health Awareness Month. What are you doing? And all of a sudden I thought, what am I doing? Nothing. I'm working and I'm seeing patients. And he says, well, I think we need to do something. And from then on, I called the other two, panelists that you'll see here, Miss Jean Ann and Miss Susan Casey, and I said, ladies, are you ready to do this? Because, it's something that we're all in mental health, we can do it. And they said yes. And as they say, the rest is history. So mental health, affects how we think, how we feel, how we act and handle life situations. It affects how we relate to other people. It affects how we handle stress and more, that you will hear from each of the panelists, speakers that we have today. So I don't want, the misconception to say, well, mental health is mental illness, so it doesn't affect all of us. As you can see, that description alone tells you that all of us suffer from mental health at one point or another in our lives, even if it's just stress that is going on. I wanted to remind you that with the registration of this event, you get a free guide. It's called Reclaim Your Mental Health, which has some tips that are beyond what we'll be talking about today. If you don't have that guide, please email me at drstam14@gmail.com. It's also going to be available on the website, www.drstammy.com, if you haven't received it. So I'm excited to introduce you to our speakers. And the way that I wanted to do was just do a rundown of who our speakers are, so that when they start, talking about their different topics, it's not going to be, a way that we start talking about who they are. So the first person that I want to introduce you to is Miss Jean Ann Moses, who will be talking to us about mental health among parents and children. She's a registered mental health counselor, intern, certified trauma professional. She's a certified grief counseling specialist, and life experience coupled with the desire to help people heal mentally, physically, and spiritually is her divine calling, which means she will deal with a whole person, when she is working with you or your children or family. So before transitioning to mental health, she assisted people with their financial, is that, you see, this thing is closing out my thing here. So is it financial help, Miss Jeanette?
Yes, it is a financial health.
Oh, look at that.
Financial industry.
There we go. She's married. She's the mother of two children. She's a grandmother and also mother-in-law. Grandmother times two should be times two in very soon. You can contact her at jeanannemoses1@gmail.com, or her phone number is right there for 78508321. Welcome, Miss Jean. And next, we have Reverend Larry Jones. He's a pastor and also a mental health professional. And guess what he did today? He actually came in wearing a t shirt that says, I am a pastor and a mental health professional. So we want to welcome, there he goes. I am a minister, actually, and a mental health professional. Reverend Larry D. Jones, his goal is to reduce mental health. I literally cannot read this thing. Reverend, help me out here.
Let me unmute myself. Where do you want me to help you out?
Can you see your whole bio?
Yes. So basically, like Dr. Stem said, I'm a minister, and my whole point is and also as a mental health professional, I want to reduce the stigma of that, parishioners and people of faith seeking mental health, but there's a stigma surrounding it and the community. And uh, the scripture, Isaiah 61, verse 1-3, the Spirit of the Lord God is upon me because the Lord has anointed me to bring good news to the poor. And he has sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, to comfort all who mourn. So, like I said, the word of God is my mantra. And I believe that God has opened the door for me to not only minister the spiritual needs of people, but to also address the physical, emotional, and mental needs of people as well. And so once again, I'm a retired Marine, certified facilitator for marriage enrichment education program, Prep 8.0 and Preparing to Enrich. And also a mental health counselor working at the VA as well.
Thank you. And guess what? I figured it out. I realized that I've got my iPad here. So now the next one I'll be able to. Well, that isn't that what happens with mental health, where all of a sudden you get this blank mind and now nothing is working out. So thank you for that introduction, Reverend. And the next person who was out eating dinner and I thought she wouldn't be here, but now she's back, is Susan E. Casey. She is going to be talking about a topic that many of us are waiting to hear, how we can manage grief. Her topic is Rock On, Mining for Joy in the Deep River of Grief. Susan E. Casey, she's a master's in social work. She will tell you, I'm a social worker with pride. She is a licensed mental health clinician, a certified bereavement group facilitator, and a certified life coach. Throughout the past 25 years, Susan has worked in hospice, inpatient, and home-based settings with teenagers and adults, and taught numerous courses to executive leaders and clinicians. Her blog on her website, susancasey.com, chronicles her grieving process following the death of her younger brother. Her fiction has won numerous awards, including the first place in the Penn Nob Hill Literacy Contest and Green Writers National Literary Contest, Rock On, Mining for Joy in the Deep River of Sibling Grief. And my name, once again, is Dr. Stem Matlatini. I'm also a licensed, psychotherapist. I provide mental health counseling. I'm a motivational speaker, a trainer, as well as a panelist for you tonight. So without further ado, I don't want to waste time because I want to honor your time. We are going to go ahead and and start with Ms. Jeananne Moses. And I want to remind everyone that we are recording this. So if you may, I have kept all the cameras off for the participants because of privacy, so that we just have the presenters. And then right after we finish presenting, we will open up and stop recording so that we can have a candid conversation about what you have heard or what you're going through, or asking for any resources and questions that you may have. Miss Jeanne, I'll hand it over to you. You're on mute.
I thought I'd admitted it.
Okay.
So let me introduce again. My name is Jeanne Moses, mental health counseling. So I did not know I was supposed to speak first. So I was not prepared. But as Dr. Stem likes to do, she puts me on the spot. So here I come. Just like an adolescent, right? We just throw them to the waves. So we just throw them to the walls, right? And we think everything is going to be okay. So that's how I feel like I'm an adolescent of this whole group. So what is adolescence? Adolescence is the period of transition between childhood and adulthood, right? It includes big changes when their body changes, their world changes, they're growing. You as parents, you don't know what you're dealing with because it's a brave new world. This is that easy child that you had that was so kind and sweet. And all of a sudden now they have just lost their minds, as so it seems. But if you recall your time as an adolescent, you remember as puberty began, encroached upon you, and you were trying to figure out who you were. So many times you couldn't even remember. They'd ask you a question like, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't even remember what you said. And we're like, they're being rude because, you know, we grew up in that generation, or they're just trying to ignore me. But the truth is their brains are going so fast that they really don't remember. They really don't even know what they're thinking from one moment to the next. You know, that when we go from that 10 to 13, then they get to that 14 to 16-year-old, and they want to drive and they want to dress up, and the girls want to wear the makeup. They start the dating process, and mom and dad are having to toe the line with these children because we forgot, and they are just exploring and trying to expand. I call adolescence the infancy of adulthood. We expect them to act grown, but we don't have not given them the full tools. We tell them to do one thing, but then we restrict them on the other hand. I'm guilty. My kids hearing me talk right now would probably say they're adults. Like, is she really talking about this? But I am. Because it's stuff like this. Where you going? There, two women can't live in one house. You're not a man. Go cut the grass. And at the same token, we say to them, you need to have those grades up. You need to find a job, if, you know, as they're a little older. You need to help with your siblings, and you need to prepare for the future. And all the while, we're not giving them the tools. But the biggest tool that we're not utilizing is our communication skills with these children. And what starts to happen is that we miss crucial points in these children's lives. So we miss the points when we wonder why the child is smoking or drinking at 13, 14, and 15. We wonder why when you go to church, or you take them to church, as it were, not stepping on your toe, Reverend Johns, but you take them to church and you wonder, how did she end up pregnant? How did she end up all of a sudden losing her mind and she attempted death by suicide? How is she now, my straight A student, rocking a 1.9 in 12th grade and is not able to graduate? How is she now my student who is a straight A student, and all of a sudden now I'm getting a call from the police? The thing that happens is that our children are speaking to us. They are asking for what they need, but we refuse to listen because we see them as something more than what they are. The way we nurtured our younger ones, it's the same way we need to nurture them. They can't know how to step into their promise or their purpose without guidance. Heck, we as adults don't even know half the time what we're doing. We're taking jobs and we're like, how did I end up here? So can you imagine at 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, you're expecting them to be fully enlightened like we do. Now, don't get me wrong, because we did it. They know everything. We know. I have 20-somethings that know everything. till stuff happens and then they need you back. But with age comes wisdom, and being mindful of that place in their life, being mindful just for a minute and taking yourself back. Do you remember the first time when you started high school and you had that outfit that you thought was so cute for the women? For the guys, you just got that fresh haircut. You're looking to maybe beginning to grow that little beard or that mustache, and you're getting the little muscles, and you walk in thinking you're the greatest thing. And then out of the ear, somebody comes up and bursts that bubble. And now your self-esteem starts to go down. Now you withdraw. Then you go home, and then your mom starts beating on your father or your siblings, and you withdraw, and withdraw. As parents, as caretakers, as a community, it's our job to pay attention to the things when the children change. The same feelings you have, they're having. And imagine at a time like this, the mental health is even more compounded because of COVID. Their normal lives that they enjoyed for a year. Imagine we can't handle it as adults. For a year, they lost relationships. They were sequestered. They had to wear masks, something they never had to do. They're on technology. They're going to school online. Actually, they lost their friendships. They missed that transition from grade to grade. Remember going from middle school to high school or high school to college, taking those double majors, doing all that stuff. They missed all of that. And we're having trouble functioning because some of us are working from home and they're annoying because they're at home. But we're missing cues from our children because it's doubly hard. Because transitions that they should be going through, they no longer get to go through. A year is a big difference in a child, in an adolescent. In that year, 14 to 15, they may have been looking for a part-time job. They're growing. They're learning conversation. They're learning their skill set from their peers. And we're telling them to be still. We're telling them to process as if life is normal, but we're on the phone complaining to our friends how difficult it is for us. I think one of the healthiest things we need to do is listen to our children. Pay attention to the little nuances of your child. It may be something as simple as your child was wearing vibrant clothes, and all of a sudden they've changed to dark colors. Your child may have been eating something all the time, all of a sudden they're not eating at all. Those are little telltale signs that could be of depression, sudden anxiety that, a lot of kids have done better. And I would say here in Florida, especially, most schools are online, have been online. The children have done schoolwork online. But now that they're home, their grades are severely dropping. They're not doing their schoolwork at all. And it's online and it's easy access. They're becoming obsessed listening to death daily. They're grieving. They're grieving the loss of themselves, the loss of their relationships, even the loss within families. We just think that they're kids and we've gone through a loss and they're not feeling it. It's so much harder for them. Moms and dads, family members, pay attention to these things with these children. Ask them. A lot of times they'll say no, but kids are more open than we are to even going for therapy. That they may need to talk to someone that is removed from you to just express their angst. That you saying something to them which may not be harmful could be such a trigger and you don't even know it. I tell parents, and there's things I did implement myself. Sit down with your child and just have a conversation, not face to face like you're working from home, you call them in, they're like, oh God, here it goes. I'm in trouble, here she goes. She's gonna start with this again, I can't. What's the first thing they say? Oh my God, Mom, you're so extra. Dad, you're so extra, please. Sit beside them like you would your friend. Watch a show and start a conversation, I've been having a very stressful time and I know this stuff. How are you doing? And be silent. And just keep doing whatever, whether it's washing dishes, watching TV. Because even as you extend the olive branch, at some point they're going to respond. But if you keep badgering, because you know you hated it, they're not going to, because it's seeming like you're looking for something, that you're trying to set them up. Let them know you're their ally, that you're their safe space, that you understand they want to talk to their friends, but you know what they're going through right now, you understand it's just a little bit difficult. Yes, sometimes they step out of line and they make bad choices. Let them know it's not them that's bad, but are the choices that they're making that was incorrect, that the choices were what's bad. I think as we empower the children to understand that we too have made mistakes, I'm not telling them, tell your children your business. That's not what I'm saying. Acknowledge that you have fallen. There are little anecdotes that you've had in your life that you can tell your children that, you know, like my mother would talk to me sometimes, and I'm like, oh my God, here she goes. Back in the day, we couldn't say anything, but there she was over and over. And then one day I sat back and I looked and I was like, the thing she said to me is what I'm saying to you. I realized she was right. Not that she was right, but I learned a lesson along the way. You have to show them you're an ally. Find somebody who is a safe person for them. If you and them are, you know, sometimes at bay, find a safe person for them to talk to. Someone that you can trust, that they know will not divulge any information to you unless it's a matter of life and death, but that you have contact with in case of an emergency. Find a mental health. We have some connections here, like therapy for Black girls, therapy for Black boys. There is Cerebral out there. Here in Orlando, we have JFS. We have so many different organizations that now do telehealth that the parents can do. So you can set up for your children and they can get signed up, and we can just you can get them some coaching. Because what therapy does for them, it's a safe place with no judgment, that they get a chance to speak their truth, but also give them an opportunity to maybe reframe, find a different way of expressing themselves, and just starting the process of healing. One of the things that have happened, we look at people like Robin Williams, but here's the reality today. Many children are dying by suicide, are cutting themselves. Things that we never think about because they have no outlet. I feel that, well, I don't feel, because the truth is, being able to talk to someone through that process to help them manage that anxiety. Sometimes they don't know what it is. You know, they may say, no, Mom, I just feel funny in my stomach. You take them to the doctor. You say, oh, that's okay. You're just a little nervous. They're asking for help. Hear them. Even if they go to a therapist for 1 or 2 sessions, if you're worrying about the price, you work a job, use EAP. EAP gives you sessions for free. Find out where your company is. If you're not insured with your partner, but your partner has a company, use theirs, because you can once you're a family, to support your child in being the best that they can be. Because Mom and Dad, when they don't feel good, you don't feel good. Because you feel the energy even if you're not speaking to them about it. You being safe makes them feel safe. Not dumping. Sometimes, you know, especially with children, you have to give them space as well, just to breathe. Mom and Dad, I want to tell you to also pay attention to some of the demands. Sometimes an understanding that they need to be given an opportunity to grow. We can restrict them a lot more in the things where they are naturally inclined to grow, in having friendships, speaking more to their friends than to you, but make them feel that it's always safe to come home to you. I will give a couple of things I do suggest that people, I strongly urge you, is have for them and for yourself in your home at all times, the non-emergency local police department phone number. Have them have that in their phone. You have it on your house and a sticky at any place in the house. The crisis text line, which is 741-741. And in each area, they may have different numbers for them for crisis. And one of the most important is the National Suicide Prevention Hotline at 1-800-273-TALK. We can pretend that these things don't exist, but they're the reality. One of the things I will talk about is medication. I know a lot of parents are afraid of putting their children on medication that somebody's labeling your child. Truth is, there's a reason medication is there. Sometimes it's just needed to take the edge off, to help them in their process. It doesn't mean it's a forever thing. It doesn't mean you're inciting your child to do drugs. If you have a headache, you take Tylenol. If the blood is thin, you take bare aspirin. Everything is not a problem, but you have the tools to use a cure. Utilize them and not be afraid to advocate for your children. Everything is not about the grades. Sometimes peace of mind leads to the increase in the grades. A lot of children haven't even been diagnosed. I didn't want my child to take drugs. Well, let me tell you, ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, which it's called now. As children get older, it shows up differently. So you may have thought your child had it, now you see they're not paying attention. Their mind is all over the place, aside from the fact that it's hormones. You can get them tested. You can go through the Department of Disability Services. It doesn't cost you anything. It's done through a psychologist. And if something needs to be done for your child, meet your child where they live. Hear them and make your home a safe home. I don't know if anybody has any questions or if we're going to continue with any other stuff. Dr. Stem?
So what we'll do is, thank you, Ms. Jeannie, and what we'll do is we'll have all the speakers go and then we'll open it up for questions.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you. Wow. I knew, and she was arguing with me. I'm like, there's so much to talk about it. She's like, nah, 5 minutes. That's all I'll do. That was awesome. Thank you so much, Miss Jeanette. That was really great. And next, we're going to have Reverend Larry D. Jones, who's talking about, I'll let him say. Oh, you're muted, Rev.
I didn't think I could ever be.
So now we need to see your T-shirt. We need to see your T-shirt.
Okay. Yes. Good evening. So let me start off first by saying once again, good evening, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Stem, and the rest of the panelists for this great event that we're talking about mental health and mental illness, mental wellness. And yes, it is. May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and as you can see, my name is Larry Jones. I'm a minister, and I have this shirt on. And if you can see the shirt, it says, "I am a minister and a mental health professional." And I want that to start a conversation, because my whole purpose this evening, as a minister of the gospel, is to try to help overcome those stigmas, those barriers that we place among people of faith. It doesn't matter if you're Jewish, Muslim, Christian, whatever your faith is. The thing is, it's a stigma because we so much just tell everyone, just give it to God. It's prayer about it. But just as you will go to the doctor because you got a broken bone, a broken leg, when you are broken mentally and emotionally, you should seek professional help. Because God has placed people in your life to help you on your journey. It's funny. So here's a scripture. Now, I'm not going to preach, but I'm just going to let you know from my perspective why I believe that you can have on Jesus and a therapist. And it takes nothing away from your faith. It takes nothing away from your faith. It does not mean that you are weak. It does not mean that you are not trusting God. You're just utilizing the tools that God has placed on this earth. In Luke chapter 4, in the New Testament, chapter 4, verse 18 through 19, listen what Jesus said. He said that the Spirit of the Lord is upon me because he has anointed me to preach the gospel. So first, that's what the shirt says, I am a minister. So first, I'm about preaching the gospel, right? But he also said that God, he said, I preach the gospel to the poor, and he has sent me to heal the brokenhearted. So Jesus already said he's going to minister to those spiritually, but he's also going to be able to minister to those who are broken emotionally, whose minds may be broken. And that's the beauty of it right there. I want to share with you some stats because this is what's important here. First of all, when we look at the statistic of the data that has been placed before us, let me just read this to you. So mental illness is widespread. So it doesn't matter where you come from, the demographics, your socioeconomic status, your religious status, your education, whether you're poor or affluent, young or old, color doesn't even matter, nor does your political stance matter. So it says mental illness is widespread throughout the United States and other places, but we're talking about here just in the United States alone. Now the stat says that 60 million Americans, that's 1 in 17. Now think about it for a moment. 60 million Americans, 1 in 17. So that means that when you're sitting in church and you're worshiping God or whomever, someone in your church, someone that you may be sitting by, may be struggling with a mental illness. But if they're in a place that they feel as though that they can't come forward or to seek out professional help because of the shame and the stigma that surrounds it, because in the community, especially unfortunately in the Black community, it's taboo. It is taboo to seek out professional help because you're kind of presented with the fact that, well, maybe you're not trusting God enough. And so therefore what's happening that many people begin to suffer in silence. And I know that's not God, that's not what God would have us do. So you got 60 million people are living with mental illness, and that's more than what you got with people who are dealing with diabetes. You got people who are suffering from it's got the pandemic that's going on. So we got the pandemic. We got should I take the vaccination or should I not take the vaccination? You have political unrest. You have racial unrest. You have our kids in school, out of school, online, virtually. Teachers are worried, parents are worried, the kids are worried. You have racial trauma in the community. You have unfortunately you have Black men who are unarmed, getting killed by police officers. So that's trauma and stress and anxiety that has increased in these last couple of years, and not only that, there's isolation. So now your safety net that you have had, it was your church, your community, your friends, your families. Now, on top of that, you have to isolate yourself. And if you have already been dealing with this right here, it just exacerbates that. It's amazing because now we're trying to figure out, okay, what can I do? As the young lady said earlier, reach out to someone. Talk to someone about the things that you're going through, the things that you're dealing with. This stats right here, I got another stat for you. It says that suicide is the third leading cause of death for African American males ages between 15 and 24. African American men ages 20 to 24 have the highest suicide rate among African Americans of all ages, male and female. There's an increase in suicide amongst our young kids today. But we have to understand that church has been the pillar of the community for years, for centuries, for decades. The church, eight out of 10 African Americans attend the church. If they don't feel comfortable coming forward and sharing their pain, then they will continue to suffer in silence. The church should be a place of healing, as Jesus has already put out there. The church should be a place where people can come and receive healing. I believe that, if more ministers, if more preachers, if more churches will preach and teach on mental illness, their parishioners will come forward. It will help change their lifestyle. Their perspective of coming forward will not be hindered. They wouldn't feel as though that they're being shamed because of what they're going through or what they're dealing with. So it is a challenge. But if you're going through something and you have a church, yes, I pray all the time. But I do encourage you to reach out to mental health professionals within your community. Reach out to, if need be, the suicide hotline. Talk to someone about some of the things that you may be experiencing, because it doesn't take away from your faith. Let me share this with you real fast as well, too. Let's say, according to one study, you have 20% more, you have African Americans who are 20% more likely to report serious psychological distress, more so than the white, but are less likely to go see a mental health professional. And you have to ask yourself why. Why aren't you going to receive counseling? There are many scriptures in the Word of God that encourage us to seek out counselors. There are scriptures that tells us that we should cast our cares upon Him because He cares for us, right? But if we are the hands and the feet of God, then He uses us to minister to those who are broken mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally. And we can't be afraid to. That's why the church that's why it's important. I believe it's important that the church should come alongside of those who are hurting. Because as a church, we can't sit to the side and pretend that all is well when we know every day that we wake up, we see these things on the news, we see it online, and we see it on our job, and we are broken. Many are broken within their churches and have not received the help that they need. So I just want to encourage you, and I also want to give you this right here. One thing that I try to encourage people when you're dealing with stress, and sometimes you gotta push away from the table. I have this thing that's called be safe. Something something that will help you in that time when you're overwhelmed and things are getting too much for you. It's called Be Safe. In the Marine Corps, we love acronyms. So Be Safe, BSAFE, Be Safe. The B stands for breathe. When you're feeling overwhelmed and stressed out, you got to breathe. You got to relax. You got to meditate. And you want to gather your thoughts. And you want to think before you act. The S stands for self-care. Self-care, that means you got to take care of yourself. You got to take care of yourself because you can't take on everything that's going on around you. You got to take care of yourself. That means you got to hydrate your body. And that means drinking water, not beer, not alcohol. It means drinking water. So hydrate your body. Hydrate your body. You want to make sure you get some exercise. If you can't run, walk. get on a treadmill, get on the exercise bike, but you want to exercise your body. You might want to change your eating habit, change your diet, but you want to try to eat more healthier foods, vegetables, fruits, and nuts of those things. Some of the same things that the doctors have been telling you for a while, because some of the things that we deal with when our bodies are stressed, our minds are stressed, our heart, our kidneys, our everything, it affects that. So you want to make sure you taking care of yourself. Get the sleep, get the rest, turn off the TV, get offline. Don't look at all that stuff all the time. That's going to raise your anxiety and cause you to sink deeper into depression. A is acknowledge. You want to acknowledge your feelings. You want to acknowledge your emotions. You want to acknowledge what's going on inside of you, the things that you feel. So if you're hurting, don't keep silent. Don't suffer in silence, and don't let shame, don't let the stigma of what's happening in the community, what's happening in our churches, stop you from seeking professional help. So that means that you got to talk to someone, ask for help. F. F is focus on your faith. Focus on your faith. Focus on your family. Focus on your friends. You want to focus on those things that's most important to you, and this will help you when you are focusing on those things. Those are the things that you prioritize. That's what's important to you, and so therefore you once again not trying to take on everything that's happening. E. E stands for embrace. There's two E's: embrace and engage. You want to embrace those families. You want to embrace your faith. You want to embrace your friends. You want to embrace those that's in close to you. And on that, the other E stands for engage. You want to engage your community. You want to engage with your church. You want to engage with your coworkers. You want to engage with those who are willing to support you as you're going through some things in your life. And if you have someone that's going to offer you support, take the support. Because you got to keep something in mind. You are not alone. You are not alone. That's what I mean. For me, once again, by the end of this here, but hey, I want to encourage you. I want to encourage you to not allow the taboo of the church, the taboo of the community, prevent you from seeking mental and professional help.
Thank you, Rev. Wow. So I just want to check if everyone can see, the chat room. Can you just put a Y, a yes, if you're seeing the chat room, so that I can just make sure that everybody's there? Yeah, we got, people that just put a yes there. Thank you all again for coming this evening. And it's now my turn. Guess what? I get to talk. So if you missed the beginning of this, the reason why we wanted to do this was just to do a quick, candid talk about mental health, because this is May, Mental Health Awareness Month. And what I decided to talk about, and cover is mental health and relationships, or among couples, because yes, mental health does impact the relationships, and especially now when we're locked up. I'll never forget when COVID-19 started last year, and my sister, I still call her my baby sister, even though she's 47 and she's a grandmother, Nikki, and I saw her here earlier on. She probably is gone, with the grandchildren. She says to me, marriage was not meant for people to get locked up 24/7, 365 days a year. That's not how marriage was created. So there's bound to be conflict and people not getting along, with now having to see your spouse, boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, in the house 24/7. She was not lying. Yes. the COVID-19 has impacted relationships as well, and mental health in itself. Remember, we talked about mental health at the beginning. It's the way we think, it's the way we talk, it's the way we connect with each other, it's the way that we deal with relationships, we deal with situations on a day-to-day basis. So what I have on my website, is an assessment that couples can take. And many of those that work with me, it is a requirement for couples to take that assessment. However, even if you're not coming in for counseling or coaching, you still can take that assessment on your own. It's on the website. Here at the top, probably 7 things that really come up as discord for many couples. Communication is number 1. That mental health affects communication, and also the strain that the COVID-19 pandemic has brought, it has come down and broken down communication even further. And as you know, relationships, communication is actually the key to a strong relationship. So with that broken, people cannot talk, cannot get along, cannot make decisions in the house together. And that becomes very, very stressful, causes anxiety, and with some couples even causing depression because they're not able to connect and communicate. Trust is impacted when there is mental health illness, or even, during this pandemic, a lot of couples are struggling with trusting each other. Here's another thing that I want to remind you. What's surfacing now are those infidelities that happened before the pandemic. And even if it was talked about and forgiven, for some reason, it's popping up again in that frustration, because now I get to see you every day, and this is what you did to hurt me 20 years ago, 10 years ago, and I'm not lying to you. Couples are calling and saying, it happened 20 years ago, but I still was holding on to it because I was hurt every day that I saw her or I saw him every day because of the pain that they caused me. So that's surfacing. And when that surfaces after 20 years, 10 years, 5 years, or even a year ago, and a couple decided that they were going to stay together, it becomes a strain on the relationship, again, causing a lot of stress if it's not resolved. Intimacy is totally impacted. Having sexual relations or sexual intercourse is impacted when a couple is stressed out, or they're going through, again, moments where they're not communicating, they're not trusting each other, their infidelities that were unresolved. Intimacy is impacted. Hence the conflict that now comes through, because now what happens is, without that communication or without the connection, they start now arguing about little things that might be minute things. They start arguing about that. So if you find yourself sometimes, arguing about, the future, your finances, and, maybe drinking a little bit too much, smoking a little bit too much, being isolated, you see a couple, one goes into the bedroom and one is, on the couch, they're not even talking. You come home and you're not talking. What I want to remind couples that have children, as Ms. Gillian spoke about earlier on, the children are watching. They are also listening. So as you go through some of these challenges as couples, remember that if you have children. But divorce and breaking up, separations, we have a high rate of those that are happening right now because of the mental stress and mental exhaustion that's happening because of the pandemic, as well as unresolved issues, situations that couples have been carrying on year after year after year, without having to come to a place where they agree to disagree, or just agree to resolve some of those problems. So I have a few quick tips, for those couples that might be experiencing any of those things that I mentioned. Number 1, figure out and talk about your love language. If you have not done a love language where you understand whether the other person is a feeling person that likes to talk about their feelings, or they like the gifts, what is your love language? How do you connect? You'll be able to take that love language online. It's also online. If you haven't taken it before, it's really cool. And you literally can download a PDF and take the love language. Don't take things personally, because right now everyone is under a mental health attack where, the stress is really, really too much or a lot to handle for many people right now, because the world is not the same, the workplace is not the same, the home environment is not the same. So try not to take things personally. Ask what somebody means, express how you're feeling, rather than, I go back into when I work with couples and say, it's almost a time where I want to remind all of you what the Bible said, or what your vows said before you took your vows, where they said, never go to bed angry or mad at each other. And as hard as that is, it's literally very therapeutic to try and work things out so that you don't go to bed upset. Why is that also important? Because of your mental health, your mental wellness. You do not want to go to bed with this anger and this frustration that is just festering in you. Because when you wake up in the morning, guess what? You are setting an intention that will make that very next day also a bad day, based on what happened yesterday that you were not able to resolve or to just let go, because sometimes it's not, resolved to the way that you want it resolved, but sometimes you just have to let it go and allow yourself to let it go, so that you can start a new day with a new intention. Wake up together and try to go to bed together. I know everybody's probably rolling their eyes like, yeah, okay, you don't know my husband. Oh, you don't know my girlfriend or my wife. You don't know. I know that's, sometimes difficult, but to try and do that together and work that together again is, rekindling the bonding that is between the two of you. Honey, can we go to bed at 10 o'clock? Well, I like to go to bed at 11 o'clock. Well, maybe let's meet halfway and go to bed at 10:30. Oh, okay. Everybody tries to go to bed at 10:30. See if that works for you, because many couples have started doing that, so that they can find a way to rekindle again and connect, because this is what's missing right now, connecting again with loved ones. Look for ways to help each other in the house, especially with the chores, with the children, with the cooking, with the laundry. It is too much for one person to handle, especially with everyone working at home. It's very overwhelming to be on the computer the whole day, and then you get up from there, then you start cooking, cleaning, and sometimes if you have kids that are still in the home, you're manning the kids whilst they're on the computers. It's literally way too much for anyone to handle. And the workplace itself, that stress that comes with work is also, it has also exacerbated, because then there's so much that is being expected of people working from home or in the workplace in itself. There's so much that's being given to people right now that the workload is doubled for some people. So try and find ways that you can help each other ease that stress and ease the burden of doing it all. The superwoman, superman, I think all those are out the door at this point, because we need to help each other to lighten the load. And lastly, seek professional help. I was excited to put this panel of 4 of us this evening, because I wanted you to have an experience of what a therapist look like and what it feels like to talk to a therapist, because many of us are now doing work via Zoom, where we are talking to you via Zoom, the way that I'm talking to you now, where we listen to you and also share some ways that you can deal with some of the problems that you're having. So I wanted to normalize again and make it, make you aware that we are very personable people that you can talk to. And, many of us, as you have seen, we are easy to talk to. So it is easier for you to reach out to any one of us and, have a family session, a session for yourself, so that you can manage, and reclaim your sense of peace. So with that, I'm going to give it to Susan E. Casey, who's going to be talking to us about grief.
Sorry, I was on mute. Hi, everyone. So in the interest of time, it's almost 9 o'clock, so I will try to be brief. As you know, grief and loss is a huge topic. It's a dense topic. And so I'm just going to start briefly talking about what happened to me that deepened my understanding of grief and loss. As a mental health therapist, I've worked with families and children of trauma for the past 25 years. But when my own younger brother died very unexpectedly over in Hong Kong, it tipped my world, excuse me, it tipped my world and my family's world upside down. And I entered a very, very dark period in my life that frightened me. And I got to a point where I needed help because I was terrified that I was never going to feel joy again. And as Stem mentioned, I wrote a book that was released last year on the 6th anniversary of my brother's death. My brother died on Valentine's Day in 2014. And the book is specific to sibling loss. And I interviewed people all over the world who had lost a sibling. And I'm not going to talk specifically about sibling loss tonight. I want to just talk about some of the symptoms, the physical symptoms that happen when we are grieving deeply, and some of the things that we can do to help ourselves. And when it's time to get help. We cannot escape this lifetime without losing somebody that we love and feeling grief and feeling that loss. But we can do loving, kind things for ourselves when we are in that deep depth of despair that I think loss can bring into our world. And we're seeing that globally in a way that we never have in this lifetime since COVID has taken so many lives. So what are some of the physical symptoms that happen when we are grieving? You know, we have digestive issues. Sometimes we can't eat or we overeat. We have a loss of energy. We're exhausted. Sometimes doing the smallest task feels like we are climbing a mountain. Getting up, taking a shower, taking care of ourselves in the smallest ways. We can get sick. Our immune system can break down when we're grieving. And so that makes us susceptible to illnesses. Sometimes we find ourselves sleeping too much or sleeping too little. We're gaining weight or we're losing weight. We're drinking too much. We're smoking too much. We're relying on some of these, you know, because I just want to preface this by saying that sometimes when we're in deep grief, I think we also forget about a lot of the coping mechanisms that we have when we're stressed out, because grief brings us to a whole new level of stress. And as I said, when I certainly had lost people in my life before, but never anyone so young, and certainly not anyone so close to me. So things that happened to me were terrifying, and I did not, and I did not know. I did not know what to do. And so when I talked about, you know, eating too much or not eating enough or sleeping and whatnot, what happened for me is I had something called fog brain. And a lot of people have talked about that, where I couldn't hold a thought in my head. I was not able to work. I had to take a leave of absence. I was very fortunate that I was able to take a family leave of absence, because I know that there are many people who cannot. And I think sometimes that can delay our grief when we are so busy with our children and our family, and we're trying to be strong for everyone around us. And that sometimes we don't have that luxury to really allow ourselves to feel. Because when we allow ourselves to feel, that can be equally terrifying. You know, we feel like we may never stop crying, or we're never, or as I said earlier, we're never going to feel joyful again. And so we can really delay that grief, but it will come in some way. And, you know, I've talked to clients before, and I ran bereavement groups for many, many years, for 4 years actually. And one thing that I have heard that's a theme among people who are grieving and don't give themselves time to grieve is we can really get stuck. We can get stuck in anger. We can get stuck in depression. And I think it's important for us to understand and know what is normal grieving, and when do we really need to reach out and get help. That happened for me about 4 months after my brother passed, when I knew I could not work, and I had to go see a counselor. And I saw a grief counselor for a year, and I always say that she saved my life, because that's what it felt like at the time. I think often too, when we're grieving, we feel like there is some sort of expiration date on how much we can talk about it to our friends. People move on after 2 weeks. They have their own lives. It's not because they don't love us, they don't care about us. It's because they've got their own life that they need to manage. And so I think that, oftentimes people will think after 6 months or a year, they're like, come on, move on already. But really, for anyone on this call that has lost somebody, you know that a year goes by in a flash. And sometimes grieving can get harder before it gets easier. And I think that in part, it's not that acute grief, maybe we're crying every day, but I think what happens for us is that it becomes more final as more time marches on. Because I think in the early part of grieving, we're in shock, we're trying to absorb the loss, we're trying to function in the most basic of ways. And that when we finally get to that point of understanding that this loss really is final, we feel like we hit another wall. So what are some of the things that we can do to help ourselves while we are grieving? This is very basic, but really it is the basic things that I think that help us to try to maintain some measure of staying healthy. I know a lot of us have talked about staying hydrated. Staying hydrated keeps us grounded. One thing that grief and loss does is we feel like I've heard floating, or just not quite of this world, or we lose time because we space out, and all of a sudden, and it can be dangerous, right? You can be driving and all of a sudden you're somewhere and you don't even remember the drive. So staying hydrated is so important. Making sure that you are eating. And, I laugh when I say make sure you're getting rest, because as I said, some people can't get out of bed. Others have severe insomnia like I did. I never slept. I felt half mad because I wasn't getting sleep, and I needed help for that as well from my doctor. Getting exercise. Maybe you were a marathon runner before the loss, or maybe you never got off your couch. Either which way, getting yourself up and getting your body moving is so important. And when I talk about grief and loss, I want to be clear. Sometimes it's not even about losing somebody. It can be losing a job. It can be losing a pet. It can be getting a divorce. Grief and loss shows up in so many different ways in our life that can really throw us. So these things that I'm offering up, as I said, they sound quite basic, but they can, but there are things that we actually have to remind ourselves to do when we are in like I said, in that place of what I call despair. And the other part I will talk about is having people that you trust, that you can talk to and tell your story to. I think that when, like I said, whether you're getting a divorce or it's a deep loss, sometimes our friends or our colleagues and people we love are afraid to talk about it because they think they're going to make us sad. And of course, we know that that is ridiculous, because nobody can make us more sad. We don't forget on a daily basis. And that I think it can help us. It can help us to talk about it and to let our friends know. Don't be afraid to tell people what you need. We want to talk about the people that we love. And lastly, I'll say, if there is a grief and loss group, if it is somebody that you lost right now because of COVID, there are so many online support groups. There are wonderful support groups on Facebook that are closed, that you can join, where people talk about those that they love. Again, in the interest of time, I wrote a whole book about grief and loss, so I could talk about this for hours, but I will stop there, because I really want to open it up. We've had so many wonderful speakers, so much information tonight, and I want to open it up to all of you who are still awake and listening to us. And thank you for coming.
I hope people are still awake and listening to us. So Okay, so what I wanted to do real quick, thank you, Susan, for that information that is very helpful on dealing with grief. I know I'm off camera, right now. So I wanted to talk real quick about reclaiming a sense of peace, just to round up everything that we talked about, this evening, because I know many of us are looking for those specific ways that we can reclaim a sense of peace. You have a PDF download that came with this. It's titled Reclaiming Your Mental Health. It also has hundreds of easy, practical ways that you can, use or pick. It's a free guide. It's called Reclaim Your Mental Health. This one, if you don't have this copy, please email me at drstem14@gmail.com. I will email you that. It's also going to be available on the website where you literally can click and download it, for yourself. So here are some quick tips for reclaiming a sense of peace. The first thing I want to encourage you to do is live in the present moment. Find ways to let go of the past. Focus on the present and take each day as it comes. Let go of what you cannot control, especially those things that will happen for tomorrow. We do not have, a handle of what could happen, tomorrow. So try to let go of the things that you have no control over and learn to appreciate each moment as it comes. The second tip is learn to accept. There are many things that you'd like to change, that I would like to change, but I cannot. So we need to accept that. There are people around you who do not behave as they ought to be, despite you talking to them, telling them that, this is not good and I don't like the way that you do things here. If you've done all that and still those people are difficult to get along with, or for, they're not hearing you, learn to either let go or accept them as they are, and focus more on what makes you laugh. We've forgotten to laugh. We've forgotten to relax. We've forgotten to be just in a place of pure peace. Find that peace. It's within you, and only you can manage and create that peaceful place. The third thing is forgive. It's very critical now more than ever to forgive, because what's happening is without forgiveness, it means many people are still struggling with their emotions. And that's what mental health is all about, that anger, that frustration, that inability to let go and forgive. It's very important to forgive because it's crucial for you to move on from that past, from that angry position that you are, so that you can find peace within yourself. Unless you forgive yourself and others, that hatred of self, it becomes a cancer within your soul, slowly just eating you and eating, your energy, the laughter that is within you. You start to lose self-respect, confidence, start to plummet. And then, you know what, you're not yourself anymore. So find ways to forgive. And one of those, ways to learn how to forgive is literally talking to a mental health professional, so that we can help process and figure out why it's so hard, and the pain that situation or person did or impacted on your life, or in you, that is now making it so hard to forgive. Forgiveness is part of letting go. And forgiveness opens you up to healing, growth, and also opens up many possibilities for you. So I want to encourage you to forgive. The fourth thing, which is the second to last, learn mindfulness meditation. The benefits of mindfulness, I even saw it on the news and everywhere today, whether we're talking about, meditation, mindfulness, that it helps you become even more calm and more insightful. With mindful meditation, you are able to monitor your inner world, manage your thoughts, your emotions, and also self-control. you're also able to manage, anxiety, being anxious about, getting up or doing things on a day-to-day basis. And I'm talking about general anxiety. If the anxiety is to the point where it's preventing you from doing your day-to-day duties, and it is something now that we call clinical anxiety or depression, even though we did this educational presentation this evening, I want to encourage you to do see a mental health professional so that we can do a thorough evaluation and diagnosis of, anxiety. But generalized anxiety, mindful meditation will help you find peace and relax. I have an upcoming training that I'll be doing on understanding the power of mindfulness for stress management. And in there, I'm going to be doing practical mindfulness together so that you can practice it. So if you've never done mindfulness, or you've done it and you need a refresher course, or, want to come in June 15th, I'll do it at 1 p.m. and I'll also do it at 8 p.m. You'll have more information on the website about that training. The fifth thing is keep a journal. Every time I talk about, journaling, many people will be like, I don't have time, or it's just too much to do. Actually, writing can be very cathartic. It's purifying, releasing, and also energizing you. You have more energy. It's also a method by which you can gather your thoughts, your emotions, and make sense out of them, which in turn will help you reclaim your sense of peace. Journaling is also one way to connect and make sense of all the ideas, emotions that might be going on in your head, especially just this time. Have you noticed that there are many people that are starting businesses, that are, trying new things that they've never tried before? Journaling will help you, put together your emotions, feelings, ideas, and everything. And guess what? You actually get to take action and also make your dreams come true by journaling. So what I have done is I have a free webinar. It's a video webinar that I did on journaling that is on my website. If you go on my website now, just scroll down, a little bit through halfway, you'll see it. It says free webinar. Click on that and, watch it, because I have some great points in that free webinar on how to journal. So I hope that you'll take some time to watch it. Again, there's a free guide that you're supposed to get with this training. It's called Reclaim Your Mental Health. And, earlier on, I know Miss Maria is one of the participants that said, oh, it was really easy to read. And I really love the self-care tips that are mentioned in there. So do take advantage of that. So we will be opening up in a little bit for any questions that you might have. But before I take this down, I want to just say my hope for you, all those that have attended tonight and all those that will be watching this after this presentation. I hope that there will be days when your coffee or your tea tastes like magic, that your playlist for your music makes you dance like there's no tomorrow. Days when strangers make you smile and memories touch your soul. Most of all, I hope you fall in love with being alive and having the opportunity to connect and become more. I tell you, when you find that sense of peacefulness, this becomes easier for you. You become to feel that peaceful person that, yes, your coffee and your tea taste like magic. You become one person that is easy to get along with, easy to talk to, and most of all, you will sleep better and even enjoy days better. So I want to send you a social distance hug, because we can't be together. Because if we could, we would love to have been in person and talking to people and literally hugging each other after doing this here. I hope that you'll join me again in more self-care workshops. I'm always doing these with different presenters, even just with myself. So I hope you'll be able to join us, learn more about the self-care workshops at Dr. STEM, www.drstemi.com for more information. So with that, I'm going to take this down And I'm also going to stop the recording because, as I said in the beginning, mental health is all about privacy and confidentiality. So I want to take this down so that we can discuss your questions or anything that you might have for our panelists who are still here with us. And I want to thank each and every one of them for being here today and helping us share this mental health awareness month in 2021. So thank you all. I am going to stop this and then we can start. Let me stop recording.